Before this week's new episode, we wanted to take a moment to tell you about another podcast we highly recommend. Our friend Pam Uzel runs the Art Heals All Wounds podcast. Pam and her guests look at so many wonderful stories of how art can change the world for the better and the journeys that led to that change. Of course, there's a good chance there's a crossover with tech every now and then. Make sure you stay tuned to the end of this episode to hear Pam's trailer for her wonderful show.
Well, hi everyone, and welcome back to Crosswires. It's James here, and this week we are going to be taking a little bit of a step back in time to look at kind of, I wouldn't even say retro, but how video used to be done. There you go. I'll put on a Yorkshire accent for you, or try and do my best Lancastrian. Anyway. Yeah, we're going to be looking at how video editing used to be hard. And we don't mean analog video editing. I don't mean cutting together bits of films. We're talking the Wild West of the early days of DV. And I have two fantastic guests. One returning guest who you heard way back in the early days of the show. And a new guest. Let me reintroduce you all to Jack, a.k.a. It's an Arse. Jack, how you doing?
Hello, very well.
Jack is currently represented, by the way, by the EOS webcam utility beta. As you'll see in the squad shot, Jack didn't have a camera easily to hand, so we're just pretending that that Jack is a piece of software. Jack, how you doing, mate?
Yeah. It's good being a beta version of some utility that I installed maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. It's probably been released, but, I just don't know yet.
Do you even still have a Canon camera?
Yeah. I've got it. It's somewhere.
Fair enough. Jack, how would you describe yourself? Out and out retro nerd or just general nerd?
I don't know. Anything that interests me. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be something really mundane. Either design, the design of a mundane thing, or just technology or something or other. Tends to have been computing, but me and Sam have had this thing we'll make a video, and it never really come to fruition until very recently, and we've kind of had to devolve to means and methods and use technology that we've never used before, and I don't know why. It's probably the limitations of it.
It's certainly fascinating. Before we get into what you guys got up to, let's introduce Sam. Sam, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, good. Good to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining. So, because you're new to the show, let me sort of ask you, tell people a little bit about yourself. What's your interest? Kind of any quirky little things that we should know as we go through the episode?
Quirky little things. Well, my job is kind of involved in TV and radio and university, so I'm kind of around technology quite a lot, and my boss has been in the business for a while, so he knows a lot about how things have changed over the years and how video editing has changed over the years, that's for sure. Quick things, I don't know, I just kind of, again, like Jack, whatever interests me, I go out looking, learning more, researching, just like looking at interesting things overall.
Awesome. Now, you have a bit, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but the video, you took some old film cameras out for a little bit of a day trip. And Sam, I know that's something that interests you. And we were talking pre-show, showing you my granddad's old Kodak 620. And
yeah.
A huge thanks to Sam, who's actually made me realise that it's going to be easier than I thought to actually be able to shoot with that, because the Kodak 620, which is what this camera is the same film stock as the 120, which you can still get 120 film.
Yeah.
But it's just on a different spool. So if you're very careful, you can re-spool the film.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the case. I think I remember reading it somewhere. I think it's all very much the same. It's just, different formats caught on, but I think it's all, kind of the same. And you just have to be very careful in a very dark room. Yes,
I think we can do that. I think I can. We are planning an episode on, ironically, we're going to take my friend's got a Sony, he's got the A7R4. I've got my iPhone and we're thinking we're going to go and do a day of the whole process of taking photos with the 3 different cameras and seeing all the processes that go into what you would do with those 3 different photos and how they end up looking. So it could be an interesting piece, somewhat similar to what you guys did. But yeah, so was the video just literally, oh, I want to go and take these cameras out, let's film it. How did that come about?
Yeah, it was pretty much that.
Okay.
It was wanting to make a video of something for a very long time. And the only idea that I recall, I mean, we did make videos a while back, but they were skittish. They were a bit comedic.
Kind of silly.
And it was a while ago. I think the only idea we'd seriously pondered was a cinematic car video feature. So it would be a very cinematic thing, about 3 minutes long or something like that, to a song. And I had the song and I started storyboarding the different shots and locations that we could do it in. And I'm thinking we can still do it.
Oh, yeah.
There's no reason why. It's just like delusions of grandeur, and it's never going to happen.
But it'll happen. It'll happen. We just need to. We've done one video. Maybe that's
It's getting out and doing it, yeah.
the jumping off point.
We did go out once and got some footage, remember, with the black Fiesta.
Oh yeah. When you drop me off at the side of the road and just waiting for you to drive by.
The test shots were interesting, but there wasn't enough footage to really do anything with, and it was awful weather. So the footage looked really crap. It was just dingy. It was just not very nice. There's that idea, and then we've never really done anything. And then Sam's gotten into this camera hobby thing, and somewhere along that line, I bought that video editing thing, that Casablanca, that Macrosystem Casablanca video editing workstation thing, purely because it's apparently Amiga based. And I did a whole video on that, going over it, and there's some information online and all sorts of stuff. And so some footage of from that day was recorded into that editing machine, and I used that to play around with. And then nothing really happened. And I think between that and us doing this video now, Sam has started seriously getting into film.
Yeah, I think what kind of pushed me more to do the kind of video stuff, I think it just kind of combined Jack wanting to use this new camera, but also me wanting to get out and take some more pictures. Because I got myself a medium format camera. Well, I had one before, but it was only I bought one for like 25 quid, and it's very kind of similar to the Kodak in a way. It's just like a foldable camera thing. But then I wanted something a bit more pro, so to speak, because I don't know. Because the problem with the old one was that it's got a viewfinder, but the viewfinder is in no way attached to the lens. You're basically pointing and just hoping for the best.
It literally is just it's a thing by it. I mean, certainly speaking for the 620, it's effectively just like you look through something that's vaguely in the same direction as the lens, but as Sam said, it's not connected to the lens.
Yeah, that's basically it, yeah. And then so I did a lot of research. Although I was also saying this, I had a camera before then. I've got a Pentax ME Super, which I got a few years ago, but then didn't really use too much. But then my girlfriend, actually, she's kind of also into photography and stuff. And so she was taking a lot of pictures, and then that kind of inspired me to go out and take more pictures and use more things. But then when I was using the Pentax one time, after it kind of been set around for a while, it decided to break on me. So then I got it fixed, and that's cool. Yeah, it's working again. And then kind of pretty soon after that, it breaks again. And then, so I'm like, okay, well, what can I do in the meantime whilst it's not working? I'll buy myself another camera. That seems like the obvious choice. Not just wait around, save myself some money because I'm going to have to pay for the repairs, but no, I'll buy myself another camera. So yeah, I got a Bronica ECTL, which is a medium format camera. Takes a 6x6 image, which is, compared to the 35mm, it's pretty big.
Oh, it's absolutely gorgeous. What a piece of equipment.
Yeah, and so the kind of point of the video ultimately was to kind of compare the Pentax against the Bronica, but then I think that it wasn't really much of a comparison in the end. My own bad photography skills are not being very good with the Pentax, actually, in the end.
Well, it wasn't so much that it wasn't... I mean, it's not much of a comparison, clearly, because they're so different. But because we were like, oh yeah, this is a great, like, you can go out and take pictures, and I had bought this stupid camcorder thing. It's not even a camcorder. I'm calling it a camcorder. It's not a camcorder. It's a bloody, it's a video camera. A proper, decent, what would be probably entry-level professional video camera, which I bought because the editing workstation, the Casablanca, well, it's actually the same age as that. So I thought, oh yeah, brilliant. You know, we can use this camera to capture footage that then I will ingest into the workstation, and I will edit a thing and then make this video, render it out, and then I'll have to record it off of the device again because it's that old. And then it's like, oh yeah, there we go. Video editing in 1998. What do you call it? Prosumer, entry-level professional. I don't know what you call it, because it was used in a number of, at least the camera was, it was used in a number of like TV shows and films. But the workstation, I don't know really who would have used it.
Oh, now which which video camera are we talking about here?
So this is a Canon XL1.
So the XL1, if I remember correctly, the XL1 became a bit of a favourite with the early sort of tech video crowd. Or am I thinking of something else? Am I thinking of its bigger brother?
I think that would be a lot newer, like the stuff that Sam's used.
And it's a big look. This is a big camera. This is miniDV, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this is where digital video was still on tape, albeit digital tape. And I mean, let's start with that, because when we think of digital video now, we think about SD cards or our phones, or, you know, maybe high-end red mags if you're really into that. And I have to admit, I've always drooled over those higher-end cameras. But all of the stuff that I shoot for CrossWires is all shot on an iPhone. I've never used anything else for shooting for this, for our YouTube stuff. But let's just rewind. We're back in the late 90s. Digital video is now becoming a thing. And what was the idea of it? I mean, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, we had effectively two consumer digital video formats at the time. miniDV, which is what the JVC took, and I had loads of little, you know, those little tiny, not tiny, but like the Handycam style miniDVs. I had loads of those in the day, and I thought they were the best thing ever. They were not. And then we had Digital 8. Now, what was so appealing about those formats? Was it the fact they were digital? Was it the fact that it was just very, very easy to just swap them out, because you could just bung in another tape when you'd finish filming your 60 or your 90 minutes?
So I don't know anything, right? I just bought the camera because it was like, I own a decent bit of kit that'll be interesting, that's somewhat professional grade. You know, I don't know where it would have fit in, but I was watching Jackass the movie the other night, and I noticed that they were actually using an XL1 to film bits of that. So it's used in that. It's used in the film 28 Days Later. That was used as one of the main cameras. And when you look at both of those two things, the shots that are being used for, you know, they're on the move. They're using it because it seems to be quite portable. I mean, it's sort of compact, but you still got a big lens on it and a lot of adjustments, loads of audio inputs, and you got all of those professional grade options that I don't know what they are. Like, I just bought the thing, and it's very impressive, and the stabilization from the lens, and it feels like a proper bit of kit now. So miniDV, it was only like the XL1 sort of grade of cameras that used that. I think any of them that were better went to use DV cam, was it? Which is a different tape or something, higher resolution.
Yeah, so I mean, I've used DV tape in my university as well. I think we're like the last kind of year group to use DV tapes to record things and to then, you know, log and capture footage from them onto computers, and then also save back to DV tapes. We have to submit one time. I think we're the last people to use that because they kind of realized in 2014, 2015, probably not going to be needed that much for graduates in the future. So I mean, I've got a bit of experience with it, but you know, even when can you go from filming little random things onto SD cards or whatever, it's quite a change, really.
Now that wasn't that 1080i?
What,
You
the
know, I
XL1?
Because-
XL1? No, the XL1.
No, not the XL1.
Oh.
No, the
Oh.
DV. What was it? Is it Sony PD?
Sony PD 170, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure they were like 1080i.
They might have been, but I cannot remember what you filmed.
I recalled, and I told you about using one and ingesting footage into AVID when I did work experience, and I did it like once, and it was connected with FireWire, and that's the only ever exposure. And I think that was like 1080i or something. So it was still on tape, but it was high definition footage. Now the XL1 from '98, you know, it's digital, but very much analog because it's a tape. The only thing digital about it is the video on there is recorded digitally, but you still have a tape you've got to rewind and fast forward and record. You can record over certain bits and play it back, and you have to like play it back into a computer to record it off. And so it's kind of analog in that respect, but the footage is digital. It's weird. I've never used anything DV tape based.
It's standard def, so it is at the most 480p. At the most,
it does 576i 50 FPS.
Oh, okay.
And it does progressive 480p at 25 FPS.
Okay, so
It has a widescreen mode, but what's the term, Sam? It makes the pixels rectangular instead of square.
Anamorphic.
Anamorphic. And it's not great.
No. I remember working with these tapes, and Jack's hit the nail on the head. Like today, you know, okay, you will have to copy your video files off your device. If you've got an iPhone and you're trying to do that USB, of course, there's many people particularly, I think I've seen the rants in the RMC Retro Studio channel. It's USB 2, so it's slow. But this was a whole nother level of slow because you were literally playing back the tape over FireWire, and it had to capture it.
To be honest, I would say that connecting that camera with FireWire to the iMac I was using initially and hitting record on iMovie is easier than getting footage off a brand new iPhone.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I get that.
Because I've spent a lot of time trying to get footage off an iPhone properly, and then it doesn't work.
No, I can agree on that one because
Dropping the footage to a Mac, and it's like, why is this so slow?
Yeah.
Now, you just plug the camera in with FireWire, and in iMovie, you hit record, and it just goes, it makes a noise, starts playing it, and it's recording it in, and it actually trims the clips one after the other. So you can just set it going at the beginning of the tape and come back 60 minutes later and have all your footage in clips saved on the computer. So you have to wait the hour for the tape, but it comes out easy.
Yes. I will say I've had to really wait. How have I gotten up footage? I mean, I've used iCloud Sync, but that's annoying.
And it compresses it, and you have to click the little button when you download it to get it in full bloody...
Yeah, in the full... Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a very fair point.
I don't know how they ruined the workflow so much. Why doesn't it work easily? I don't want to edit it on the phone. I can't overlay stuff easily in iMovie on a phone. I'm not paying for a third-party app when iMovie will just do it. Or even Final Cut Pro, is that on iOS?
No.
Exactly, so there you go.
No, DaVinci have beaten Apple to having a video editing tool on their own platform.
Really? I can get Resolve on my iPhone.
You can get Resolve on your iPad.
Oh, no, I haven't got one of them.
Okay.
Deal break.
Well, people in general can get DaVinci Resolve.
I will spend £1,000 on another device to record footage.
I mean, come on, Jack, this is you. Of course you're going to spend money on more devices.
I'm just going to buy another old camera.
I mean, I guess so, because you've worked in this space. Do you think based on that sort of almost simplicity, plug it in, almost treat your computer like an old VCR, capturing the footage. Have things like, even if we go into more professional, beyond iPhone, more professional stuff in TV, have things improved? Is it easier to get footage off, or is it actually taking a step back?
I suppose actually, if you're just kind of using an SD card and then copying things over, that's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. But there's a certain kind of usefulness to actually having to maybe sit through and log footage and know what's there. So then when it's ready to edit, you already know kind of what you've got, what you can work with. So there's a certain kind of usefulness there. But in terms of speed, of course, it's a lot quicker. It just copies up from an SD card.
Now that mindset was something that's detailed in the user manual of when I was trying to use Final Cut Pro 4. It was what was it called? Log and capture.
Yeah.
And we discussed that a bit, and I spent some time going through and logging it all and stuff, and then it just didn't work. Because, I can't read manuals or whatever. For whatever reason, you went to record it and it didn't work. But
no, I do remember I did a lot of, again, a lot of projects on consumer grade deep miniDV cameras for church and for family stuff, and spending hours trying to get footage and logging it. Said, okay, this is the bit where the guy starts talking. This, or the family video, this is, after capturing hours of footage, this is the only bit I actually really want from Disney World. And FireWire. Now, look, maybe some of our listeners do not even know what FireWire is. I mean, I'm going to guess that's actually a reasonable percentage of our listeners may not know what a FireWire connector is. It was, now correct me if it was I think Sony and Apple developed it jointly. It is a standard. It's technically, is it IEE 1394 is the actual technical name for it?
IEEE is the sort of consortium that decide on the standards of things computing wise. And then 1394 is the number for the standard for FireWire, like data transmission. And it had a few different types, didn't it? So there was like the 4-pin one, and then there was a couple of different connectors. And for me, it was always something I'd see, but I never used. Like, even the original model of the PlayStation 2 had, I think, what Sony called an iLink socket on the front, which was the tiny little 4-pin.
The 4-pin one, yeah.
Yeah.
And
but I don't think it got used.
I don't even know what that would have been for. What would you have used an iLink socket for on a PS2?
I'm not sure what it was used for even, but it later got removed.
It did.
But, Sony did it like they did with memory stick and NFC. All Sony devices throughout everything would have FireWire, VIO machines. It would, featured prominently on the front of the machine, on the side of the laptop, and memory stick and all that. And Apple devices always had FireWire.
Yeah, certainly from like the G3 era onwards.
Yeah,
they had FireWire. Yeah,
I think it was quite popular with music production equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And
yep.
I don't know if they did like MIDI over FireWire.
I think in fact, I know you could, because one of the audio interfaces I used to have was a Focusrite. It wasn't the Scarlett, was it? It was the Focusrite Sapphire Pro 40. That was a beast. It was a rack mount unit that somehow I thought, that's a good idea to buy. I spent a lot of money on the thing. That was over FireWire 400 on the 6-pin connector.
Yeah.
I remember it was FireWire 800. So without getting too much into it, it's very interesting because Apple really touted FireWire as better than USB, and it was better than the original, like plain old USB 1.1. And it was 400 megabits originally. Now, technically speaking, USB 2 is faster, but FireWire was able to actually do sustained data transfer at 400 megabits, where USB 2 wasn't. So FireWire was considered a better standard, and every Mac nerd wanted FireWire hard drives. I think I still have some FireWire hard drives somewhere around here, some FireWire enclosures rather. And then they did FireWire 800 as well, which was a bigger, odder connector. I don't think I ever saw that used in cameras. But yeah, most of your cameras would use a little 4-pin connector, and then you plug that into your iMac or your Vio and do the editing on there, which is very interesting. So before we move into actually the actual editing experience, because I want to touch on that Amiga system as well a little bit, Jack, because that wouldn't have been digital, would it? That would have been entirely analog.
Ish.
Ish, okay. We'll come back to that. But Sam, I want to ask you a question. Like, obviously, we're talking old film cameras.
Mm-hmm.
What is it for you that attracts you to that old film stock, and the whole process behind that? What is it that interests you about film cameras? Because I mean, me sat here right now thinks, oh my gosh, I couldn't do all that work. I couldn't not see the photos I've taken straight away. What is it about film cameras that excites you the most?
Well, I think actually part of the not necessarily seeing the photos straight away. There's a certain excitement in taking the pictures, and then you got to wait and see if you've messed it all up, for example, or if you've got some really cool pictures to begin with. There's that, and then I think kind of back when I got this the Pentax, things weren't crazy because now they're kind of prices are really high for things because everyone's getting back into it. So I picked the camera up for like 50 quid.
Wow.
And it was kind of like, yeah, I could maybe get a DSLR, or I could get like a film camera or something and do it on the cheap. Obviously that's not the case now, but so yeah, there was kind of that as well. And then I know there's something very satisfying about taking a picture, and then you've got to wind the film, advance it, and then there's that sense of closure when you've finished a roll of film. It's like, okay, that's done now. And then you're considering, each picture is worth a certain amount of money, if you will, because you're paying for the film. It's there. You can't just carry on, So yeah, I guess it kind of makes you slow down and consider things again. Maybe also in going back to the whole process of vlogging and capturing footage. You're considering each thing. It slows you down. You're not just taking a picture and then you never look at it again. You've invested your time and that kind of thing in there. If that makes any sense whatsoever.
No, that makes perfect sense. I get exactly what I mean. You take the time to compose the shot, to check the settings on your camera, because I mean, it's been that long. I can't remember how much film used to cost, but it wasn't. I mean, let's put it this way: a roll of film then would probably cost as much as a single decent size SD card now. Adjusted for inflation, maybe. I might be a little bit wrong about how, with an SD card or your phone, you can effectively just take it, within reason, take as many photos. You don't get it quite right. I mean, now our habit is to, we're doing maybe, I use the example of family photos. I do this all the time. I'll be there taking a photo and I'll go, just one more. Auntie something. Can you just, no. Put your drink down, Auntie. It's okay. No. We don't need another shot of a champagne, thank you.
You spilt it down your top. Why have you done that? I told you to put it down. Oh, bloody hell, everyone's moved.
And all of a sudden, you've got like family photos from the same event where like everything is like completely different, but every shot you took used up one of those exposures. I was trying to get the right word, but one of the exposures on the film. So you had to be mindful. And then, of course, what ended up happening, if you weren't a very good photographer, your film came back from Boots, the chemist, or your local photo lab, with a quality control sticker on it.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, thanks. That's the biggest insult, isn't it, to get a photo back from Boots with a quality control sticker?
You judge me, what?
Yeah, no, I get exactly what you mean, Sam. There is something really nice. Look, as I said, I'm really excited to take that camera out, that Kodak 620, and actually shoot with it. I had, my childhood was, little Canon. Actually, I had a Canon point and shoot. I can't remember what it was. It's somewhere at my parents' place. I will find it. But it is really interesting. And I think, and then of course, you either send them off for development to a lab, or if you're fancy. Now, I've got to ask you, were you doing your own developing at this?
Not yet, but one day I hope to get into it when I've got a bit more space and I'm brave enough.
Yeah, I know, and many listeners will know I talked about Grandad, and Grandad developed his own film. He I think he used to drive my nana crazy because she'd be wanting a loo and he's trying to develop him a bathroom. You know, he's filled up the tub.
Yeah, I remember my granddad having the trays and stuff because he had a couple of SLRs and a load of lenses and stuff. He was into photography.
I remember we actually have a couple of rolls of film from a 620. We took them to Max Spielman in Tesco and asked them how much it would cost to get them developed. The poor kid running that Photoshop had no clue what he was looking at and just did not know what to do with that film. But let's go back to kind of editing video. So look, you know, there are lots of great video editing systems, and we'll put a link to Jack's video on the what was it? The Amiga, the
Macro System Casablanca.
The Macro System Casablanca. And look, there's been lots of videos on things like the Video Toaster and other edit suites. I mean, I remember in school we had an edit suite, and it was literally two SVHS decks and a fancy video mixer, and that was our edit suite. It was all analog. It wasn't cutting film; it was tape to tape. You know, you'd have I think we had like 3 tape decks, so that we could play, you know, 2 sources, edit them together, and record them to a final deck. But Jack, what did you? So let's talk first of all. Obviously, very important. What Mac did you start this all off on?
Well, it started on the Casablanca.
Oh, okay. So this started on the Casablanca. What was your experience with the Casablanca? What did you find interesting about having to capture into that? Because again, I'm assuming that was not a FireWire connection. Was that just plugging in the analog video jacks?
So the Casablanca is I get a bit of technical. As is shown in the video, I don't know much about it, but it's a thing. It looks like a bit of a hi-fi piece of equipment, and on the front it's got a nice VFD display. And the front will flip down, and you can see it's got a caddy in there that a hard drive goes into. And it has a hard drive. I think it's an 8 or 10 gigabyte SCSI hard drive. But in the software, it only references how many minutes of footage that you can record in. So it's very much aimed at someone who needs to edit video well, rather than someone who might be technical, who might use like a video toaster on an Amiga 4000 or something like that. So for the things that the A4000 with the video toaster was used for, seems to have been higher value productions like Titanic, for instance. I think there was stuff done with the video toaster for that, Babylon 5, and there was there's a program, what's it called, Lightwave, to do some like 3D stuff.
Oh, 3D stuff, yeah. Well, because that's what Babylon 5 was done in, but Lightwave was a lot of the Babylon 5 3D. I mean, it would have been, I guess, edited on a video toaster.
Yeah, so then you've got that. So if I say that's like the top, I think the Casablanca fits in. I think it was like a couple of grand to buy this thing, and you got the books and the floppy disks with the extras, which were like transitions and video effects that you could apply to it. And you didn't need to be technical to use it. It's very much point and click. You use the trackball with it, and the interface didn't look like an Amiga, though the machine, the original one I think was called the Draco, was a lot more similar to an Amiga. But the Casablanca is a smaller machine. It looks like a high-end bit of Fi-Fi equipment, and you could hook up a PC keyboard, and you would use a trackball mouse. They seem very particular about using a trackball mouse, and it's a nice point-and-click interface. But it has those things like when you start it up, and the screen's like black and then goes grey, like an Amiga does, and then the floppy drive keeps ticking like it's waiting for a floppy disk to be inserted, just like the Amiga, and then it boots into its OS and the hard drive spins up. That machine, there was a couple of different spec levels, and it is based on a Motorola 68000, but it's a 68040 or a 68060, and they marketed the 68060 version as a media accelerator or something like that, and that was like an upgrade for the machine. So you could get it with the accelerator it wasn't very much specified. Is the technical aspect of it. The memory in the system's removable, but they don't seem to mention how much memory it's got because it doesn't really matter or something. So another upgrade for it was DV, and it was, I think, specified as DV in. So you could record S-video in to the machine. You could record composite and phono for left and right audio, or you could get the FireWire option and record FireWire from your camera digitally into the digital video editing, workstation, and that gets stored on the hard drive inside, and then you literally have your clips recorded in, drag them onto a timeline one after the other. You can set your audio, you can watch a preview in a tiny, tiny window on the screen that will live preview any effects and stuff. And then you can render it, which takes absolutely ages. And then you have an option to record it back to a DV tape, or you can record it out to a VHS, basically a VCR connected to the machine. So you didn't lose any quality if you had the FireWire option. You could record in that way. Now, mine doesn't have the FireWire option, but it does have the accelerator option. So it has the 68060. Very sort of clunky because it's from 1998, but it was sold as a video editing workstation appliance thing, an all-in-one package. You didn't put the software on it. You couldn't put the software on a PC or an Amiga or something like that. You bought this thing and you didn't have to be technical. You could just read the manual, click the options. There was no, computing sort of, you have to compile the whole thing or install the programs and stuff. It was very user friendly. Knowing what we know now about modern video editing software, it's difficult because it's so different in its ways.
I mean, I think I put a link in our stage chat, Jack. Is that it? Because that looks like the DV option.
See, they all have the port on it. So mine does have the port, but you'll see the sticker on the back. That's it. Rendering acceleration. Mine's ticked and it has the 060. And then on mine, there's another box on the sticker that says miniDV or FireWire on it, and that's not ticked. So they all have the port. Actually, that one doesn't seem to have the port. Maybe they had some revisions because that looks like it's got a panel cover in the back, whereas mine's just it's all one panel. So
interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, it's they all had it. Because there's very little information about it, I don't know what the DV option looks like, to be honest. I know it has the port, but it doesn't work.
Right, and that's what you said in your video. There's so little information about this. Because the company are still making, to this day, video editing appliances.
Yeah, I think one of the later ones they did was called an Avio or something. But that seems to be their business model, producing these appliances. But although I'm sure that very recently now it'll just run on Windows.
I mean, I know, didn't AVID used to be similar? AVID, you'd buy AVID systems. I might be wrong on that one. But anyway, so what made you... So you'd done a little bit of editing on this, but I assume its limitations meant it...
Well, so I got that because of its relation to the Amiga, and it was quite interesting. But also the fact that it was a non-linear editor, and it was sort of so old at the same time. I thought it'd be interesting to see what it was like to do our car video with that never came to fruition, or hasn't yet. And so then it was like, oh, do you know what? It'd be nice to have a camera. And so that's how I bought the Canon XL1.
I see. So then, obviously, moving forward to this video, we're moving on to Final Cut 4. This is old school. Now, was this full-blown Final Cut? This wasn't Final Cut Express, this was Final Cut.
Yeah, so this is me on my Dream Power Mac G4 tower, downloading Final Cut Pro, installing it, and expecting to be able to fly it.
So, okay. So, first of all, yes, on the Power Mac G4, because that thing is a beautiful machine. I remember drooling after that when I saw the Power Mac G4. Like, I want that. It had that aesthetic, and of course, it had FireWire. And you installed Final Cut. What went wrong? Because you said you expected to be able to fly it. What happened, Jack? Because I think this is a wonderful part of the story. Is because obviously you've got the video, it's done, but what went wrong along the way?
So, well, the first hurdle was I cheaped out on the XL1. I took the risk. Basically, on the used market, they're between 200 and 350 quid still for some old video camera thing. I took a risk and bought one that had been listed as, like a house clearance or something like that. And it didn't have a battery. It was, I looked at the pictures and it looked in all right condition, but they couldn't test it. There was a bit of muck on it, and I checked the other listings on the seller, and it looked like, yeah, they do house clearances. So I bought it. I sent an offer in, I think, just for like 10 or 20 quid off. So I got it for about 70 quid. I got it, and we filmed the thing, and I did some test footage, and I was like, right, now I can record S-video into the Casablanca. Brilliant. So I connect it, and I'm like, oh, why is everything in black and white? So I'm checking all the settings and this, that, and the other, and I'm sure I think Sam went, why don't you email Canon? So I did anyway, because I thought, that would be interesting, and kept messing about with it. And so over S-video and composite out, the image is only in black and white for some reason. Now, the only information I found about this is another eBay listing for an XL1 was shown being demonstrated using either the composite or the S-video out on a TV, and it was in colour. So I was like, right, well, mine's faulty then, because my footage is in colour on the viewfinder. Yes, a colour viewfinder, an LCD colour viewfinder in 1998. Pretty good. So I was like, oh no, FireWire's my only bet. And my mum and dad told me, oh, we've got this iMac, get rid of it, it's one of yours. Right, okay. So I recently got that, so I ordered up the correct FireWire cable, plumbed it into this iMac, fired up iMovie, and there it was in colour. So I recorded all the footage in, and I edited up a video in iMovie. Now that was iMovie HD. So this would have been 2009 with, is it iLife 09?
iLife 09. I remember that. I remember iMovie 09 coming out, yeah.
Was it 06? Because the Mac is a 2006 Core 2 Duo.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it was quite a new version. In the grand scheme of things, it was quite a new version of iMovie. It was all right, but you can't put two clips in one on top of the other.
No.
Right? So, and you can't do more complicated stuff. So we had the idea of, well, Sam's got all these cameras and he needs to go out, and I'd like to go and shoot some footage. Oh, let's shoot a comparison video kind of thing on the two film cameras, the Bronica and the Pentax. Oh yeah, brilliant idea. So we did. We went out, filmed, come back. I think we had a really good time. I enjoyed myself, and it was great using that camera.
Yeah. It's good.
Come back, ingested the footage into the iMac, and I couldn't believe it. Like, I was seriously impressed with, like, it has like a certain tonality to the footage that's kind of analog. Like, it had a bit of a warmth to it, but you could tell it was a more professional image because of the stabilization. Clearly the lens was pretty decent. And
I read the specs on that lens, and it was a pretty decent, like, it had a good lens at the time.
Oh yeah. And what was it we used? Yeah, so the voiceover bits that Sam did, I bought this really cheap knockoff Rode, what are they called? The wireless ones.
Oh, some knockoff wireless Go's, right?
Yeah. The included microphones were awful. The one built in was awful. The lav that was included was awful. But I had this really good Sony stereo lav mic. So we plugged that into the sender Sam had, and then we had the receiver. So these don't have built-in storage, but they're wireless. I think it's 2.4 gigahertz. So I then had on the hot shoe on top of the XL1, I had the receiver with a lead going into the into the audio input on the side, and you can plug headphones into the camera and monitor the audio and set the levels and this, that, and the other. That was bliss. Like, setting that up and getting the levels right, that was so good. And being able to monitor it as well. I mean, I'd never done that before. I thought, oh yeah, this works really well. So we did the voiceover bit. Sounded pretty good. The camera action went well, apart from the Bronica jam, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think what happened there is because this is kind of like the first proper shooting I'd done with the Bronica, so I'd never finished a full roll. You know, I'm reading like, okay, so it should, once it gets to the end of the last frame, it should just kind of wind off and there won't be any issues. But then it's like, oh, I still have to actually advance the shutter. Really? Is this right? But yeah, that's my fault. I should have researched more. But I think, yeah, everything kind of went well that day with the Canon, at least.
Yeah, it was great fun because it was the Bronica is a piece of art. It's gorgeous. The viewfinder is gorgeous. You know, the thing's so well built. Seeing it and using it and stuff was amazing, and it was the whole thing's a complete learning experience for both of us. Using this old equipment, whereas we could have done the same with modern stuff, I don't think it would have had the right feel to it because we're just so familiar with DSLRs and newer equipment, because of course it's done like that because that's the way it works, because, you know, that is the way it works now. Whereas with the older stuff, it works in a different way, and it's interesting to learn that.
And how, you know, your experience of the audio, yeah, I mean, there's a reason professional cameras have audio inputs. You know, it's one of the biggest points of frustration now is getting good audio onto particularly smartphones. I mean, look, I've got the Rode, what is it? The Video Mic L, the LE, the one that plugs into Lightning. Great microphone. One slight problem. You cannot use it if you have your iPhone mounted into your Osmo Mobile 5 because it overbalances the gimbal.
And that's because obviously I have an OM5 as well. That's a problem. That is a big issue. Yeah. So we got the footage out, and it just had that sort of an analog feel for me to it, and it was just a pleasure to work with. An absolute pleasure to record with and get the footage out of until I started using Final Cut Pro.
Yes. So just for clarity, at the point that you are coming into this, so you've got this now. At this point, are you still on the iMac, or have you moved to the G4 Tower to start using Final Cut?
So I bought a PowerMac G4 mirrored drive door locally, and it's basically the one I've always wanted. It's the dual CPU.
Is that a 500 dual 500?
No, it's like a 1.25 gigahertz.
Oh, so this is a nice high end G4.
It's the absolute top spec mirrored drive door G4, last one they ever made.
Oh yeah, because the MDD was the MDD the last of the G4s?
It was the last one. So they had the last one wasn't compatible with OS 9. So Apple, the last most powerful one, it's dual 1.42 gigahertz G4s.
Okay, that makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Which is the absolute last model. So I think it was late 2004. And Apple brought out another model that was less powerful but was compatible with OS 9 because of those people that still needed to use OS 9 compatible apps. Then they discontinued the G4 and the G5 come out. So I'm absolutely stoked to have this machine. It's like, it's basically my favourite Mac tower. And I was never able to get one. So it's amazing. I've had the other ones like the Quicksilvers and the what's it called? The one with the stripes. It's got like the pinstripes and the plastic.
The graphite?
Graphite, yeah. So I've had all the other models, and I've had dual CPU ones, but it's never been the same. So I got this thing, and I was like, oh, I'm so excited. So I put 10.4 Tiger on it, and I was like, right, what's the version of... I want to try Final Cut Pro, because it's a proper thing, and I can't do what I want with the footage in iMovie. It's just too basic. So... it turned out it was Final Cut Pro 4. So I got that, installed it, and then it was like, right, I'll have to read the manual. So I had to read the manual because it's that complicated. And then you have to use this function called log and capture, where you go through it and you log all your clips, and I'd named them all and set the timestamps or whatever, or at least I thought I had. I'd gone in and clicked record, and it come up with a timecode error. And it was something like timecode missing or something like that. And I was like, oh no, because I'd spent an hour or two logging all of these clips. I just thought, no, I'm not doing this. So I opened iMovie and just clicked record, and it just imported all the clips. And then it's all on the drive as .dv files. And so then I just put them in Final Cut Pro and started editing. And it was all right. The editing's easy enough, apart from it beeps at you. If you put audio on there and try and play it back, it starts beeping because the audio isn't rendered for the clip.
Oh, yeah.
But I had to Google it.
I remember you had to wait. You see, again, these days with the power, I mean, if you're editing in Final Cut Pro on an Apple Silicon based machine, an M2, my next Mac is probably going to be one of the M2 Pro Mac Minis. But even this iMac, this glorious iMac that I have here, I very rarely have to wait for stuff to render. But back then, you had to wait for stuff to render before you could preview it.
It wasn't that. It was you put the clip on the thing, on the timeline, and you then tried to play it back and it would beep because the audio wasn't rendered for some reason.
Oh, so it wasn't just that it was waiting to render, it was that the audio hadn't for some reason.
Yeah, and once you were editing, the machine was really good. Like, you would drag a clip on the timeline and press spacebar and it would play it back immediately. Even when you had everything in place and the transitions are used, you could play the entirety of the timeline in real time without having to wait. But for some reason, there was this thing with the audio, and I don't understand. But you don't have to do that now, do you? You don't have to tell it to render the audio so that it doesn't just beep at you.
I think I'm going to make an assumption, but a lot of that would have come down to what the format of audio was. I just something is ringing true here from my experience. But yeah, you'd have to render audio so it was in the right format. Yeah, and again, you don't have to do that now. And, bear in mind, folks, this is Final Cut 4. So this was way before the magnetic timeline. You're having to align those clips manually.
And it looks old. Like, the software does look old, even though it's from 2004. It had the older Mac OS 10.2 like brushed aluminium finish to all the UI and stuff, and there was a lot of grey, and so the UI was quite old looking. But it worked until I tried to export it. So the footage was fine. It knows what to do with DV footage. Perfect. It fitted the project settings. The template was there. I give it the clips. Perfect. Worked. Once you put a clip on the timeline, the audio had to be rendered. Like, you could just play it in the bin and it would play fine and play the audio. So I put all my things in there. I put a couple of titles in there, and it become apparent that we hadn't shot enough footage talking about the Pentax. Well, it says a lot, doesn't it, really?
So at this point, did you drag Sam back out to record more footage on the Pentax? Did Sam get dragged out?
Do that would have made more sense, wouldn't it? But no, that did not.
Well, it was like on the day I was like, because it was the first time I'd seen that camera or anything, the Bronica, and it was, I've used film SLRs in the past, they're nothing new to me, but this medium format thing that I've since learned is medium format. Oh yeah, it's just a proper bit of kit, that. So it was the star of the show. It was, it was my favourite of the day. Like, that's what was used all day, pretty much.
So you weren't paying attention to the Pentax, is that the deal?
Yeah. And, the video came out pretty well for someone, a couple of lads not really planning anything at all other than, yeah, we'll do that on Saturday. And we did. So if we add some structure to it and applied all of the methodology that Sam knows because he's a professional, then we get a really good result out of it. The idea was that I would edit it again on the Casablanca, and then whilst also giving Sam the footage to edit it in a modern tool his way. Edit it however he likes, and then we would watch all three and just go, oh yeah, that was cool, or this, that, and the other, and because there's not enough sort of footage, it's not very good because we were very casual about it. We didn't have much to say about the Pentax.
Right.
The video I did has the titles for sections for Bronica Verdict and Pentax Verdict, because at the end of the day we actually sit down on the bench using the what's the type of microphone, Sam, on the camera, the long one on top of the camera.
It's kind of a rifle mic kind of thing.
Right, it has one of those. And so we sat on a bench and did a conclusion to put in the video. And we filmed that and used the audio from the rifle mic. And it was all right, but it was a bit too far away, I think. I was surprised it was that good because it didn't have the foam sock on it. And there was a bit of wind every so often. And there was some, traffic noise in the distance. But you could hear what we were saying. The only thing I couldn't do in Final Cut Pro was figure out how to bump the gain up and apply an EQ. There's a bit advanced, that. So the next thing we do, we're going to apply ourselves, and that one is the video. It will be so much better, and we'll put some thought into laying out a video. I'll take Sam's lead because I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, we'll plan. That'd be a good plan.
And that's maybe obviously look, this was as I like Jack's phrase, a casual video, but obviously when you're filming, be even nowadays, you're filming your YouTube short or you're filming your thing, you will plan your shots. It's very interesting because you can do so much in editing, but if you don't have the storyline or the shots planned out, you're probably not going to get anywhere. So, Sam, I want to obviously sort of bring this into the modern age a little bit and say, first of all, are there any advantages? I mean, we've talked about that sense of accomplishment, a sense of pride and taking your time over a analog photo. Is there any benefit in editing with older tools and using older cameras, or is it just gone because it's so much easier to edit in modern tools?
Yeah, there's an advantage of doing it the old way, I suppose. Yeah, because you're a bit more involved in it, you're thinking about it more, I touched on it before, because things take more time, or you only get one shot at doing something. So you probably learn a bit more technical side of things. You consider things more. You're really yes, technology's a lot better now and things are a lot easier. So maybe in some ways, if your camera can do full auto and you can quickly edit things, that's good in one sense. But then is it any better because of that? I don't know really. Again, it's no idea what I'm talking about really, but I'm trying to get. There's probably pros and cons to both. I'd always recommend people trying different things out just to see what it's like, see if they learn anything, see if they enjoy it. Because it is a different thing. It's almost like a whole different exercise. Doing things the old-fashioned way. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely good to look back and see how things were and see how things changed, and then also kind of apply things that you would have done in the past to the present as well. Certainly when it comes to considering what you're shooting and maybe planning ahead and knowing logging and knowing what's good. So then because you do that at that stage, you do your logging and stuff before you kind of go to editing, you can edit a lot quicker and you kind of know in your head what will look good. And explaining things is not my. I'm better behind the camera in front of it than in front of the camera. So.
No, you're coming across great, Sam. Honestly, it's fine. And look, there's one I skipped over, and I guess it's something we've almost hinted on, because Jack's experience of trying to capture the footage in a professional tool like Final Cut, and then goes into iMovie and it just does everything. Is it fair to say that when Apple brought out the iMac DV, which was the first iMac with FireWire, and unveiled iMovie to the world, do you think they shook up the home video editing space? I mean, if he almost created the home digital video editing space, right? And then advanced everything else in the process. But do you think Apple have a fair claim on shaking up that easy to use digital video editing market? Question for both of you, by the way.
Well, you know how old we are. I remember when I was a lad, when we were in school, it was there was a separate building with like iMacs and stuff in, and they had a lot of different facilities. That's the earliest recollection of video editing on computers, and that would have been 2007-ish. So
after the Intel transition, at the point where
yeah, these were like white iMac 17s, some G5s, and then larger like 20-inch, I think, before they went to the aluminium ones.
So you're both of an age where when you came into doing video stuff, it was already well beyond the iMovie stage.
It was iMovie. Well, there was iMovie there. At home, it would have been Windows Movie Maker in XP, and then pirated copies of Sony Vegas 8.
Yes.
But to answer your question, I can only speculate. Apple's very good at taking a bunch of things that already exist and putting them together in one simple package, right? So you've got your camcorder there that you've paid whatever money for that's handheld. And Techmoan's done a really good video on his experiences with earlier camcorders that were DV or whatever, and he shows his struggles now using modern tools to get the footage off them and it not going very well. I've had similar experience getting that DV footage, trying to pass it to Sam for him to edit, and put it like this, it's not happened.
No, I have not got this footage.
He's not got the footage, and I can't remember if I did get it converted. I think I might have had to like save it as an AVI file that's like MPEG 2, because DV just doesn't work on anything modern. But Techmoan has the answer. I think he used an older version of Vegas on a Windows machine, because his latest version, is it iMovie or Final Cut Pro 10? Is it 10 or X? Whatever.
10.
Whatever the latest stuff, because he's a Mac user, that won't open DV. And he says, like, he goes into detail on it. So I do have an iMac G3 with the FireWire on. So I can only imagine that if you had a new camcorder back then, you could plug in a cable and, at least in the early 2000s, have iMovie. And because I don't run OS 9, I run OS 10 on my G3. It can have iMovie, and you can plug it in and have that would have been a brilliant experience.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. Look, a memory's just come back to me of working. You know, we talk about how much I shook up work. So I was obviously doing stuff with my youth leader back in the day, and he had been gifted the funds for this ridiculous PC-based Premiere Pro, and he went on a course for it, video editing system, and it had a Matrox capture card. He would end up editing like a 5-minute clip inside of Premiere. It would take ages to capture the footage because the capture card. I mean, his files, were like hundreds of megs. Like, I think it was 800 odd meg. Now, that's tiny these days, right? But 800 odd meg for a 5-minute clip. The problem was that nobody had storage medium big enough to fit the files on to then come and play through all the computers with video projectors. And I think we ended up having to really squash the resolution down, or I think we ended up having to buy. What did we end up doing? I think someone bought a really expensive external hard drive for this stuff, and it was just ridiculous.
I think the footage I recorded in was how long was the video? 12 minutes edited down? I think there might have been half an hour of footage recorded in. I think that was about 6 gig in DV format. And bear in mind that Power Mac has a 60 gig hard drive.
So you've used a tenth of your hard drive.
Exactly, on an unedited file that then I've got to edit and export.
We should be very grateful for modern compression, I guess, at this point.
Well, we have so much more storage compared to the size of the files.
True. I mean, yeah, look, I've got, 1 terabyte SSD hanging off this iMac for video stuff. I mean, I've got my NAS. So, yeah, it's a very interesting point. Now, and I think my wrapping up thought is going to be, look, when we look at modern tools, and we've talked about, modern filmmaking tools. We've talked about mobile video tools. We did an episode about mobile videography and editing, LumaFusion on the iPad and the iPhone. Now, Jack, I know that you do not want to pay for a third-party app.
But I did listen to the episode, and it was great. And I think that was one of the things I said to you, like, we were doing this thing, me and Sam, and we should talk about that as well.
Yeah, because it's good to look at how far we've come. But, when we talk about, iMovie being available on iPhone and iPad, and look, again, compared with where iMovie was when we're talking iMovie HD, yeah, it's far better. You can layer clips on top of each other now. I think you can anyway. I think you can in iMovie. I might be wrong. But you've got, LumaFusion at the lower end. And then on iPads, and I think it has to be Apple Silicon. Again, we'll double check. But DaVinci Resolve running on an iPad. And things like Final Cut Pro 10 are wonderful tools. And also, fair play to Apple, Final Cut has massively come down in price. Final Cut used to be nearly 900. It was a lot more. It wasn't 900. It was very expensive. And now Final Cut Pro is about $200, £200. And I bought this probably 10 years ago. No, I bought Final Cut Pro a long time ago, and I've never had to pay for an upgrade.
Wow.
It's really cool.
It's pretty good.
Whereas, and I'm sorry Sam, I apologize. I mean, I don't know. You? I take it in your line of work, are you doing more Premiere?
Well, there's an interesting thing going on at the moment where we're kind of in the stages of changing things over. So just because we're journalists, and so the kind of whole workflow there is kind of based around AVID.
Right. Okay.
And so there's this whole discussion about where we go, but the problem is most places now just go subscription to things.
Yeah.
So there's just a massive cost involved in that. So it's great to have, places, programs that are just like, oh, you pay for it once, upgrade for life. So like DaVinci is as well. Imagine with DaVinci, you can just get the free version and it's good enough for pretty much everyone as that, so.
It's amazing what it is for free, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that probably half the retro YouTubers in the RMC Discord, again, this is how I met Jack, so I'm referencing this. I know a lot of them use the free version of Discord of Discord. That'd be great. of DaVinci to do their videos. I think it's fantastic.
Best free tool.
But yeah, it's a free tool. And Sam's hit the nail on the head. Adobe, I'm going to call out Adobe Premiere Pro, and the whole Creative Cloud subscription thing is becoming ridiculous. And subscription, I don't have a problem with subscription for services. Like, for example, 1Password or Wallaroo or, even smaller apps like iViry for Mastodon, for example. I pay for that yearly because I know that that's ongoing support to the developers. But it just doesn't feel right with Adobe because,
My opinion on the Adobe Creative Cloud products is that it's so antiquated and cobbled together now and patched, and new features aren't there that Serif are doing with the Affinity Suite, and they still charge loads of money for it every month because they can, because it's industry standard.
Yeah.
Not because it's particularly good at anything. A lot of people are going to disagree, but the mighty have fallen.
I don't think you're wrong. All right, so wrapping up, I'll ask you both for two features of modern video editing apps that you are the most grateful for, that if you could transplant back in time to these older solutions, and maybe this is more relevant to you, Jack, but certainly for yourself, Sam, what are the two features of a modern app that you just either couldn't live without, or if you could take back in time and implant into old versions of Final Cut, or even even Miss, I forgot the damn name of it, even the Casablanca, what would be? So I think we'll start with you, Jack.
Speed and ease of use.
Very broad there, mate, but I like it. I mean, yeah, okay, we'll go with those.
It's kind of annoying. I was going to say the same thing, but I guess I'll try and think of something a bit different, or maybe go a bit more specific with them. I suppose maybe accessibility. You know, we were just talking about how you can get DaVinci Resolve for free and things quite cheap, but you know, the fact you can edit anywhere or on pretty much anything if you want to, it takes it out of being, you know, professionals only, and now anyone can do it. You know, and anyone can make a short film for about anything they want to. I mean, I'm sure you can do that with like editing in camera and filming things, but if you wanted to just kind of put together a holiday film or something, you know, you could do that real easily. It's very easy to use and friendly, and it's making the ease of use, but you know.
No, I get the accessibility of. No, I get exactly what you mean. The ability to be able to edit. I think I like that phrase, editing anywhere on almost anything. I mean, look at some of it. You know, DaVinci Resolve being a great example. It's on every platform, on Linux. Heck, in fact, you know what? I could actually edit video on my Steam Deck.
I mean, technically, you can edit video on a PlayStation 5 if it's a clip of a game you've recorded.
I mean, I suppose that is still technically editing a video, isn't it? It's still a captured video. And, I mean, the only downside, and this is obviously a joke, folks, is it has enabled the influencers. Is that a good thing?
Well, yeah, I mean, this has just popped into my head, right? On YouTube Shorts, and I haven't used TikTok, but I imagine it's the same. You're technically video editing to create the short to then literally upload there and then, because you can record sections of it, can't you?
Yeah,
and then put things together and do certain things to it, and then like upload it. You're technically editing it there and shooting, editing, and uploading very rapidly without thinking about it. That you could consider that as a video editing tool, but what you're doing is you're just making a short video that goes out.
You know what? You're right. I mean, even the Photos app on iOS, and many, of course, I'm not excluding Android, but many other options on Android, you can trim clips. Well, that's editing.
Yeah.
You can change the color. That's editing. So yeah, I think that's a really good point to take away. Awesome. All right, guys, this has been such a fun chat. We will absolutely be linking the video that the guys shot. Jack's blog post bemoaning all of his little issues that he had along the way.
Sam's also got a post on his findings on the same site.
It's very rambly.
Rambly is always good on a blog post. We'll put those into the show notes, as well as many links as we can find to various bits and pieces. I've been writing out a few bits and pieces as we've been going on. Thank you both for your time. It has been a longer recording, folks. We've been we've almost been storyboarding part of this episode as we've been going on, figuring out, okay, what do we want to talk about? Even with a plan, sometimes things change. And I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. Sam, if people want to find out more about yourself, do you have a blog? Do you have a web, any social media that people might want to follow?
Instagram's probably the most interesting. You can see some pictures on there. Yeah, Sam Jackson Media on Instagram. You'll find me on there.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And Jack, what about yourself? I mean, you're all over the place, but is there anything you want to highlight at the moment?
Oh, thanks. Really appreciate this opportunity to haul myself out.
Go on, man. Go on.
No, you'll see the video to the Casablanca if you want to see that. There's other videos on that YouTube channel.
You've done a bit of YouTube, haven't you?
But
you've done a bit of YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, the point of that channel is I just do a video as I want, very little editing to it, ironically, on things I think that are just really cool. It's all technology, and then we started this blog thing as. We just want to write stuff and the camera thing has been a good excuse to build it and do the writing. So it's more for us personally. We're not really bothered about anyone reading it. It's good. It's like I enjoyed reading Sam's post, and he's took the time to sit down and write that and how he wants exactly, and put any pictures in it. And it's long form, and yeah, it's a nice exchange. But anyone can read it.
Yeah, awesome. I will promote that. I've got to ask you both: have you made the move to Mastodon yet? Have you discovered Mastodon? No.
Thank you, Elon Musk, for removing the option that says you have to log in to view any more posts on Twitter. That is brilliant. Thank you very much. I don't do Twitter. I don't do anything like that. I hate it. But when there's something interesting on there, it doesn't hassle me to sign in now.
Yeah, because he wants anybody to be viewing the tweets. Anybody, doesn't care who it is, just please view the tweets.
That's fine.
I mean, look, I never thought I'd hear someone thank Elon Musk on a podcast, but there we go.
He's done one good thing.
What's that?
Well, removing the sign-in prompt on Twitter.
Okay, fine. We'll count that as the one good thing that Elon Musk has done. And on that, we will roll that outro. Thank you, boys. Thanks for listening to this episode of Crosswires. We hope you've enjoyed our discussion, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. So please drop us a note over to podcast@crosswires.net.
You can also drop us a comment on the post, or if you're a good pod user, why not start a discussion there too?
You can also join our new Discord server at crosswires.net/Discord. We've got forum channels for each episode, and we'd love you to join the discussion there.
You can also follow us on Mastodon at Crosswires at mastodon.social.
And of course, you can find the show in all the good podcast apps, and all the really bad ones too.
More of our content, head on over to crosswires.net/YouTube for all our videos, and keep an eye on our Twitch channel at crosswires.net/live for our upcoming streams.
If you like what you heard, please do drop a review in your podcast directory of choice. It really does help spread the word about the show.
And of course, if you can spare even the smallest amount of financial support, we'd be incredibly grateful. You can support us at ko-fi.com/crosswires. That is ko-fi.com/crosswires.
Until next time, thanks for listening.
Do you want to change the world? So do I. On this podcast, we meet artists whose work is doing just that. Welcome to Art Heals All Wounds. I'm your host, Pam Uzel. Each week, I interview an artist and talk about their work. As creative thinkers, artists present us with some of the most compelling visions of ways that our world could work better for everyone. Art around environmental, social, and racial justice, gender equity, ways to build community and bridge divisions, and solace for grieving. If we can see solutions to the things that prevent us from thriving as individuals and societies, we can imagine implementing those solutions. Once we imagine that, we can become the people we want to be, belonging to communities that nurture everyone, and living in societies based on equity and justice. How do we change the world? One artist at a time.